So there is a lot of trade rumor speculation. That's what, for the next few weeks until we actually get to the draft, that's all you're going to get. Every day, this team's trading up. This team's trying to trade back. This team's eyeing this guy. Is it smoke screen? Is it real tea? We don't know. We don't know, but we are here to report and speculate on what we get on these alleged rumors, reports, sources close, investigators say, team officials tell me, so on and so forth. Draft, trade, rumor season is upon us. And you see it here, Angel and Don. Angel Reese, Don Staley. A lot went on over the weekend in terms of the women's college basketball Final Four. Polarizing things are going on there. I know most people aren't locked in too tough on it, but in regards to the viral moments that happened over the weekend, especially with Dawn Staley and her comments, and then Angel Reese and the whole Caitlin Clark, Tony Yayo, Southside, we out here. All of that went viral over the weekend. I'll touch on that in a little bit. And lastly, Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins. There was a really rough, nasty rumor that was circulating, and it comes to find out that it wasn't true. Or at least that's what's being reported, that rumor was not true, that there was something more serious going on in regards to the nefarious stuff that we were hearing about him and his family and his nuclear family, as opposed to his, as opposed to his parents, which is being reported now. So we'll touch on the A. Wiggins thing, but there is a lot of football stuff to get into. Thanks for those who are pulling up. If you're pulling up here, drop that like if you'll be so kindly. I do appreciate that. Helps that algorithm do algorithm things. And let's go ahead and get right into it. It is NFL draft trade season. So now I'll start with Houston because the Panthers are kind of lockstep at number one. There's rumors there they might be trading back. There's rumors of that. But I think the more interesting spot is at number two with the Houston Texans. Is it a guarantee that the Texans are going to take a quarterback? It's been assumed that with the Panthers trading up and getting the Bears up out of there, that the first two picks were guaranteed to be quarterbacks. Have we reached a place where the Texans would actually consider not taking a quarterback at the second pick? Even if they trade out the pick, you would assume someone who trades up to that pick would be going second and taking a QB. But if the Texans sit at number two and don't take a QB, what do we think about that? So this comes courtesy of Peter King. He does a lot of great stuff for NBC. Let's go right into the screen. You see here, Houston Texans have to pick a quarterback, or do they? Right? So you see that there, or do they? Right? So I think this becomes a Will Anderson or bust move. Do you take Will Anderson? Is that something you feel more confident about than settling with whoever the Panthers don't select at two? That's a real thing. So I'll do a little bit of reading so we guys can read together. We're all operating under the belief that the Texans will pick a quarterback that Carolina leaves for them. I am 90% on board with that. So this is Peter King, who has a lot of sources, has been a legend in this industry for a very long time, wrote for Sports Illustrated back in the day. The Texans also picked 12th. With that pick and 2 first-round picks next year, isn't it possible to think that they take the cleanest prospect in this draft, Alabama pass rusher Will Anderson, at 2 and get their quarterback slightly lower, somewhere around the 4th pick or after? I think the Texans are going to go with quarterback at 2, but in the last few days, I've heard this about Houston GM Nick Caserio. Very conservative. If he doesn't love a quarterback at 2, he's not going to force it. He'd rather take this year's sure edge thing, Anderson, the way Detroit took Aiden Hutchinson with the 2nd pick last year. Detroit got rewarded handsomely with a great rookie from Hutchinson. It's a stretch, but I could see Nick taking Anderson, then using his 2nd first-round pick and trading back up to get his quarterback. Okay, we'll finish off this little blurb here. Peter King puts his editorial spin on it. Maybe. I bet Indianapolis at 4 and Seattle at 5 would be okay with moving to 12 if it meant adding the better of the 2 Houston first-rounders next year. Reminder, Houston has its own next year, and Cleveland's one. but I still believe it's far more likely that Houston stays at 2 and gives its fans the long-term quarterback the franchise has been seeking since its inception in 2002. Are we assuming that Deshaun Watson was not a long-term quarterback for that franchise? I mean, he didn't end up being that, but interesting. Owner Cal McNair would certainly want the quarterback at 2, and Texas fans will be deflated if the loser of the Young Stroud Stakes in Carolina isn't the pick at 2. So where do we stand here? I'm of the mindset that if you're not sold on the QB at 2, then why would you trade back up with 12 to get him at 4? Right? So let's go ahead here to this mock. Let's say this stands firm and the Panthers stay with CJ Stroud. And I see y'all in the comments. I'm going to come to y'all in a second. I appreciate the likes. Thank y'all for doing that. Helps the algorithm keep pushing it out to more people like y'all so we can build this community. So if the Panthers stay and take Stroud, if you don't want Bryce Young at 2 and you trade out, who's to say that who you're trading out with, who's moving up, isn't going to take Bryce Young? Are you assuming that whoever moves up to 2 is doing that for Anthony Richardson, AR-15? I'm assuming if the Texans trade out, let's say down to 4 or down to 5 or wherever the case may be, that whoever they trade down with is moving up to 2 to get Bryce Young. I don't think you need to get to 2 to get Anthony Richardson unless you're petrified of what the Colts are going to do at 4. And then we've been talking about last week how this number 3 spot is also a really strong pivot point depending on what happens at 2. If you really want Anthony Richardson and you think that the Colts are going to do it, if Bryce Young is off the board and the Cardinals are sitting there at 3, the Cardinals are in a fantastic position to hold a ransom for whoever wants Anthony Richardson. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on, because if you're going to trade down to 12, let's say they said they're going to trade, they'll worry about this pick here, right? So if you're concerned, if you take Will Anderson here at 2, right? And now you're worrying about this pick here at 12, and you're going to use the 12th pick to move back up into the first round, who's fallen this far that you're willing to trade back up for? That's kind of where I'm confused as to why this rumor is something that's being, substantiated as something legitimate. Because if you're taking Will Anderson at 2 and the plan is, all right, we'll grab a QB once we move back up into the first round at 12, well, isn't that giving up some of the draft collateral you just got in the Deshaun Watson deal? You're willing to give up some of that collateral for, I would assume, a Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, if he even falls that far? Like, you're not going from 12 to like 6 or 5. I don't see that. I could see you moving, unless you're going to package some of the stuff next year. Would you give up the 12 and a first next year to get back up into the top 6 to get Anthony Richardson? If he's still there. If the Colts don't do it at 4 for whatever reason. We're assuming the Seahawks, even though the Seahawks have said they would draft a quarterback this draft. They haven't said they would draft a quarterback high necessarily, but they said they would draft a QB. They're not afraid to draft a QB in this draft, despite them re-upping on Geno. So is that something is that something y'all think is like legitimately possible? I'll go to the comments early. Thank y'all for pulling up. Thank y'all for tapping in and chatting. You see, we got Corey. What wide receiver wants to play in a run-first system? Well, JSN is not much of a blocker, right? JSN is not much of a blocker. I don't think Addison's that. If we're talking about just receivers that are pegged to be first-round grades, off of size, I think you got to go with Quentin Johnson, right? He's got the size to be a guy that you would think can flourish in terms of blocking. But if you're talking about who doesn't need a lot of targets that can still get the job done in a run-first oriented system, I think I would still go Quentin. I think JSN, I don't know if I believe in him like that to be in a conservative offense to still flourish. I think he kind of needs to be in a more open offense, more of a more modern day offense. But again, it depends on who he falls to and who uses him. Because a lot of the times the skill set of guys we see in college doesn't necessarily translate, and vice versa. Sometimes guys' skill sets get unlocked at the next level that we don't see at the college level. So I think in terms of just size, I'm going to go with Quentin Johnston, but I think there's something there with Addison and JSN that could be possible in terms of a conservative offense. But if you're talking about a wide receiver being able to be dominant or be able to be really productive in a more conservative, balanced offense, just because of his size and what you could do with him, I think I would go with Quentin Johnston. I really like what I saw from him in the playoffs. Let's see. Alexandra, what's going on, Alexandra? The Texans need a QB. I certainly think so. I think they do. And I think the Texans know that. And as the article mentioned, the owner, McNair, knows that too. So it will be interesting if they pass on Bryce Young, assuming the Panthers take Stroud, and going with Will Anderson. Will Anderson, and Corey knows me, that's full transparency, that's my cousin, but he's a big time NFL guy. He knows his stuff. He watches film, all 22, all that stuff. So his acumen is his top tier. I'm not the biggest fan of taking an edge rusher this high in the draft. And you see how this whole top 5 has 2 edge rushers. Now, I think Tyree isn't your traditional edge rusher. I think he has a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you could do with him. You can move him up and down the line. So I'm not too mad at Tyree, but Will Anderson, I don't know if I'm putting him. To me, he's just not someone I would take at 3, to be quite honest with you. Safe. The article that Peter King said that the scout told him, or the GM said that he was the safest pick. Safe at what? Like, I don't see dynamic edge rusher. He can make plays for sure. Are we jumping the gun here at putting him on the line? Is he that at the next level? I think in certain packages he can be, but I don't know if he's an every down lineman on the edge. I just don't see that. Unless you're trying to say he's Hassan Reddick in that mold or something to that effect. I mean, cool story. I don't know if I believe that, but it is what it is. But yes, I believe that the Texans need a QB. I think they'll get a QB in this draft. But I mean, never forget, Caleb's coming. We saw how they tricked off their first round pick this year. Salute to Lovie Smith. That's the biggest win he ever had affiliated with the Chicago Bears. That's the biggest win of his whole career as a Bear coach, what he did in the last game for the Texans. But in regards to, if you're not convinced it's Bryce Young, then can't you spin the block and use some of that collateral you got next year to try to get in position for Caleb? This kind of seems like the play to me. I mean, if you're telling me Bryce Young, or they're not going to be good this year in terms of the Texans, so you would assume they're going to be in the top 10 next year. You use that pick and then the Browns pick, and maybe you leverage some future picks to move up to try to get Caleb. I'm more inclined to do that than taking Bryce Young, to be quite honest with you. Back to the comments. Alexandra. Colts should take Will Levis. He's not a project and can play right away with Pittman and the other weapons that you have. I will not lie to you, Alexander. I am not the biggest Will Levis guy. Why do you think they should not take Anthony Richardson there at 4? I'm more inclined to take Anthony Richardson and just go get a stopgap for a year. I'm not one of those people that think that Richardson can start right now. I think his mechanics are too erratic and too inconsistent that he could start day one. Unless you're going to let him, like I said last week, unless you're going to let him do like Justin Fields did with the Bears that first year, but he just runs around and you just allow him to just do whatever he can to make plays. I think the Colts are actually set up to where, as you mentioned, they do have Pittman. They still have Jonathan Taylor. They still have remnants of that offensive line that was really good a couple of seasons ago. I don't know if I would put someone with bad mechanics back there week 1. If you want to do the Desmond Ridder thing where let the stopgap guy play for, 12 games, and then on the back half, the last quarter of the season, you let, AR get in there, then that's something that could be done. But in regards to week one, I don't think you do it. But I like the upside of Anthony Richardson more than the safeness of Will Levis. Appreciate the comment. Boogie Down's always here to stir the pot with Lamar. Why would the Colts take Will Levis instead of trade for Lamar Jackson? Yeah. I mean, how long we got? We got 15 minutes before Lamar got mentioned. So I'll take that as a win for this stream for this show. You see, this is one of the few streams I don't even have Lamar on the topic bar, but Lamar topics are never far away. But yeah, if you're trying to rationalize taking Will Levis at 4 as opposed to leveraging picks for Lamar Jackson, I would definitely push back against that. If you're not in on Lamar Jackson, then you might as well take someone that could be a version of him in a way. Let's calm down. Let's be clear. I can hear people already reacting. In a way of Anthony Richardson. Like, if you don't want Lamar, all right, you want to get a cheap version of someone who could eventually play similar to Lamar at his peak, then all right, then you take Anthony Richardson at 4. Corey, I think you got to hit it in draft. Free agency is... Yeah, I mean, I think the draft is imperative. I don't think you could build a roster in today's NFL without doing well in the draft. I think, there's a lot of, I think in every sport, if you don't hit on your draft picks, it really puts you behind the 8 ball. It puts you in a sense where you have to now buy to cover your mistakes. You have to buy players to cover the mistakes you made in the draft. And I think when you have all these picks, like in the NFL, and these teams with multiple first-round picks and future first-round picks, it's like, yeah, you better hit on those. You have to. That's why scouting and evaluation is so important in today's NFL. And I think too many times we get caught up in the metrics of someone's height, weight. Like you see here, all we see here is just these stats. Like the completion percentage, we talked about it briefly last week. The fact that Anthony Richardson's, completion percentage is 53%, well, 54 if you round up, that's really bad, dog. Like, that's really putrid. Like, and I like him, right? But 54% completion percentage, and he's got horrible mechanics that might take at least a year to fix. Like, this isn't like Mahomes. Like, Mahomes had tricky mechanics, but it wasn't bad enough that it really inhabited or it contributed to his completion percentage being sus. Like, Richardson has bad mechanics, and those bad mechanics are what's allowing him to be only a 54% passer. That to me is a problem when at the league, you need to be, the average is around 60%. That's going to take a significant jump for him to get from 54% in college at a school like Florida in the SEC to where you're going to be in the NFL where the windows aren't going to be as large. The windows are going to be smaller. You're going to have to throw it harder, pause. You're going to do all that stuff to fit it in there. And you're already erratic to begin with, and you have suspect mechanics. So to me, I think this is a marker more so than QB rating, more so than passing yards, and even TD to interception ratios. Like, today is all about completion percentage. And with so many checkdowns and dump offs and screens, you're still 54% completion percentage. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. But I'll leave it to the experts to sell me on why I should just look past that. Alexandra, they need a ready-to-go QB, and you get that in Will Levis, and AR-15 needs to sit a year or two. I don't know about 2 years. I agree that he needs to sit a year. I mean, do we know if Will Levis is... here's the thing. Here's the thing with Will Levis, right? What are you expecting from Will Levis? And I mean that in the sense of, what's his comparables? Who's his comparison in the league? I've seen Josh Allen. I've seen a huskier Joe Burrow. Like, it's been a real weird comparison chart when it comes to Will Levis. So y'all let me know, those who have paid attention to Will Levis. I'm not going to sit here and assume or try to act like or portray myself to be an expert on Will Levis. But from what I've seen, I didn't see Josh Allen, and I damn sure didn't see Joe Burrow. So y'all let me know what y'all have seen out of Will Levis, coming into this year. Corey in the chat, Will Anderson didn't wow me enough in college. I agree. He could be a product of the program, product of the system. Saban always pumping out, linebackers. And, to me, I envision Will Anderson as a linebacker, to be quite honest with you. Like, if they're making him an edge rusher in the league, that makes me diminish my thoughts on him a lot more. I liked him as a linebacker, and you definitely not taking no linebacker at 3. But now if you have him put his hand in the dirt or rush off the edge, now you can justify taking him this high. But quite honestly, I wouldn't do it. Alabama defense with Swiss cheese. Yeah, Tennessee tore them up. Even Texas, even real early in the season had some real good success. So, yeah, Alabama defense isn't what it used to be. I don't know if that's Saban or whatever the case may be, but yeah. See who we got here. Appreciate y'all pulling up, even if you're just tapping in just to see what the stream is about. We're going to keep it pretty smooth today. I don't see myself getting too worked up. We'll see. But, there are some topics later in the stream where maybe I'll get worked up a little bit. But, coming off the weekend, busy weekend, a lot going on. Even today, busy today. So really trying to navigate and see what's going on in the landscape. And when you look at the storylines we've been talking about, no real update on Lamar Jackson. No real update on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to the Jets thing. So everything is kind of status quo. So now this is why we were able to spend more time talking about the draft. I can work in some actual, other sports with, the Angel Reese and Dawn Staley thing later and Andrew Wiggins even after that. But yeah, right now we're kind of status quo and everything is locked in on the draft to me. And this week to me begins the real push of this is where you're going to start to see a lot of draft content. So Corey saying what he was saying is no free agent wide receiver wants to play and be more. Got to draft them. Well, they've been drafting them. They just don't know how to draft. If the best receiver you've drafted is Hollywood Brown, then yeah, you got some work to do. So, if you're going to believe that narrative, then cool. Let's see, where are the Ravens at? Ravens are at 22. I wouldn't be mad if they take Quentin. If they're at 22 and Quentin's there, I know they don't want to take another receiver because they've been taking wide receivers. They just haven't been taking the right ones. But I think Quentin's better than who they had, Bateman, and who's the other one that they've been taking the last couple of years. I think Johnson's better than those two. But it is what it is. Alexander Levis has more than a 50. Yes, Levis does have. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're just basing off of that, fine. But my thing is that I just haven't seen someone that I trust that's an expert or analyst really give me enough reason to why Will Levis should go 4. He's a first-round QB. I don't think he's top 10 based off what I've seen on tape and what I've heard from people that I trust. But because of so many teams near the top of this draft that have obvious needs at QBs that don't want to jump into the Lamar Jackson thing, allegedly, then this is how Will Levis goes top 10. Don't think the Colts have the LJ money. Well, that's not what Jim Irsay said. Jim Irsay said it's not about the money. So unless he's lying, which is possible, and if you're new here, I put up a clip from Friday's live stream where we talked about how Arthur Blank was blatantly lying on Lamar Jackson. And I actually had a idiot in the comments telling me that he was comparing, Arthur Blank had that narrative about Lamar Jackson missing 5 5 games and 6 games the last couple of years, right? So, and I was comparing how there was that doctor who put out that chart that showed that even with those 11 games missed the last 2 years, the 10, 11 games missed the last 2 years, he still has played 85% of his games. And that's comparable to a lot of other QBs who are, quote, running quarterbacks, right? Which would debunk Arthur Blank's whole narrative that Lamar plays this, unique style that's only, as independently his, when there's other QBs who are running QBs who have also been injured, if not more injured than Lamar, and they've all played roughly the same amount of games. And I had someone in the comments tell me that we're looking at it wrong. We should be looking at the last era of running quarterbacks and how most of them were backups the majority of their careers. And this person went on to mention Dante Culpepper, Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham, Steve Young, and so on and so forth. He just went and named Steve McNair. He named all the greatest running quarterbacks and told me that those guys were backups the majority of their career. And then this person tried to tell me that he studies football. Y'all let me know how someone who claims they study football can type or thumb on his phone the words that Steve Young was a backup. Now, technically, he was a backup early in his career to Joe fucking Montana. And then when he took over, he became a Hall of Famer. Dante Culpepper, he's saying was a backup the majority of his career. Michael Vick, he's saying was a backup the majority. These are the people that are in the comments of my videos trying to tell me why I'm wrong. YouTube is an interesting place. I'll tell you what. I had to go ahead and get him up out of here because he just kept repeating talking points from NFL Network and ESPN and passing it off as his. And I could tell y'all something straight up. That's not what I'm going to accept here on this channel. Don't come here like repeating stuff you just heard on ESPN or, NFL Network or whatever. Like y'all see when I bring up something here, I pull up the facts of whoever's saying it. I source it. You can see who wrote it, all of that stuff. I don't just come on here and just give you an opinion. That's really something I literally just heard this morning or last night or on the timeline or podcast or whatever. Like, I just do not entertain that type of nonsense. Okay, so let's see. Corey wants to hear some NCAA women's talk. We will get there. I just want to make sure we touch on the draft a little bit here. And there's some other free agency stuff that I want to hit on. But yeah, we might be able to jump to that a little bit early. Boogie down. Money talks. Ravens are cheap. You got to overpay for a proven guy. That's on the Ravens. Yeah, I agree. Corey, Jalen Carter slips out of the top 10. It certainly looks like it. He has, he was trash at his pro day, right? And he's not doing any pre-draft workouts, apparently. He's not going to do any visits with any teams, apparently. What a fall from grace. What a fall from grace. Someone who was thought to be the number 1 overall pick like 3 weeks ago. Now is someone that, despite you see him sitting here at 6 to the Lions, there were a number of teams, the Raiders included, that said he's no longer on their big board. And there were a lot of teams that were secretly co-signing that move and echoing the same. Now, how many of them are actually going to follow through with that? I don't know. Because the body cam footage of the whole Jalen Carter thing just came out, and yeah, that looked a little dicey. Corey, Lamar being injury prone as a runner is BS. He got hurt getting hit in the pocket. Yeah, but if you tell Arthur Blank that, I'm sure he'll move the goalpost and make up another narrative. He'll talk about the completion percentage, even though his completion percentage is better than Josh Allen's and right behind Patrick Mahomes. It's just, this is all that they keep doing. They just keep doing the same thing of, finding a way to I'm just going to keep explaining, even if I have to lie, even if I have to exaggerate, I'm going to keep lying about why I really don't want my team to go get Lamar Jackson. So that's all it is for that. Alexander, I still think it's collusion. Let me make sure people can see this because you know how I am about the collusion. I still think it's collusion, but hey, I am just my stance, and I don't think Jim Irsay has the best ideas considering he's had Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. And don't forget Phillip Rivers. Let's not forget the Phillip Rivers era with the Colts as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think there's definitely something there. You know, I think the video that kind of got a lot of y'all here, and maybe I'm wrong, but my most popular video of note has been me talking about why the NFL is colluding against Lamar Jackson. You know, it's got 10K views, and you know, it's still getting views right now. And that video is like a month old, but it's still getting views, and people are still commenting on it. People are still subscribing off of it. And if you haven't subscribed, you can do that too, right here, live. Appreciate you in advance. But yeah, I think it's clear collusion. There's no way you can have that type of synchronized effort when they put the franchise tag on Lamar and everyone was, you know, rushing to put statements out saying why they have no interest in Lamar Jackson. It just seemed way too synchronized and organized to me. But hey, well, what do I know? I'm just a guy on a YouTube stream, apparently. Okay. So I think I want to jump to Angel and Dawn real quick and walk with me. There's still plenty more NFL to get to. But let me just set this up to make sure I have this right, because I want to play the sound for y'all. So that requires me to make sure that the sound is working. But let's start with this. Your man's Keith Olbermann to Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark, you know, was really a tornado over the last week or so in women's college basketball. And she was able to, you know, take over the landscape and bring a lot of eyes and a lot of attention to the women's college game as Iowa made a run. Iowa, who's not a college basketball powerhouse, either men's or women's. So the fact that Iowa was able to get to the Final Four with Caitlin Clark is a feat in itself, right? But then they face LSU in the Final Four, and you know, they're taking that L, or excuse me, in the championship. They're facing LSU in the championship in the Natty, and they're taking that L. And Angel Reese, who is a beast herself, beast in a good way, Keith Olbermann, is, you know, mocking her because Caitlin Clark went viral because she did the whole Tony Yayo, John Cena, depending on Tony Yayo was first, okay? Southside till I die. That's just how I get down. But John Cena popularized it to people who don't look like Tony Yayo. So, but that has become a favorite taunt of hoopers. And Caitlin Clark gave that to Louisville, and the clip went viral. So now LSU clearly on that type of time, and Angel Reese, who, if you know her backstory, is definitely on that type of time, hit her once the game was clear and out of reach. Hit her with the Steph Curry first, where she pointed at the ring. Said, yeah, I'm about to get one of these. And then seamlessly transitioned into the Tony Yayo / John Cena. You can't see me. And look at your blue check boy, who used to be a legend back in the day for SportsCenter. He was thought to be funny, witty, dry humor, and parlayed that four-letter network gig into another four-letter network, MSNBC. And he was thought to be on the cutting edge of society. And look what this old man has turned himself into now. This was his reply, and he has since tried to walk this back slightly. He has not stood 10 toes down, but he has tried to walk it back a little bit and apologize because we were after him. As you see, we got those. There we go. 16.5 million views on this tweet. And this is just a day or two ago. This is yesterday. So in not even 24 hours, in 23 hours, 16.5 million views for this one tweet. So he got raked over the coals, and I would love to get Angel's take on it. So I think this sound will play. Y'all let me know in the comments if it doesn't, but I'm going to re-cue it here. And I think we should be good to let Angel speak in her own words.
I'm happy. I mean, all year I was critiqued about who I was. Nobody, I don't, yeah, the narrative, I don't fit the narrative. I don't fit in the box that y'all want me to be in. I'm too hood, I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing. So this was for the girls that look like me, that's gonna speak up on what they believe in. It's unapologetically you. And that's what I did it for tonight. This was for the more than, it was bigger than me tonight. It was bigger than me. Twitter is gonna go in a rage every time. And
Facts.
I mean, I'm happy. I feel like I've helped grow women's basketball this year. I'm super happy and excited. So I'm looking forward to celebrating in the next season.
Okay, so hopefully y'all heard that. If y'all didn't hear that, let me know. But I'm pretty sure I didn't see no one say they didn't hear that. So I'm assuming y'all were able to hear that. Very poignant words. I love that she stood 10 toes down in it. A lot of times when you're a person of color and you do something and you're caught out there doing something and you're pressed, normally by people who don't look like you have a tendency to squeeze up and tighten up and try to explain yourself out of it. And Angel was not on that type of time. She stood in it and doubled and tripled down on it. And if you know her backstory, she is super nice in terms of basketball skills and just off the court. And she hasn't really gotten the same recognition as Caitlin Clark. And this is no shade to Caitlin Clark. She's a problem, right? Like, but in how they have described how Angel plays, or maybe not even mention Angel at all, but love to tell us about how great Caitlin is, they're really setting up a lot of tropes and stereotypes and narratives that, quite frankly, a lot of people would have assumed in the year 2023 would have been gone by now. But we're still getting to those narratives. We're still hearing those tropes of, the high IQ of a Caitlin Clark, the team first attitude of a Caitlin Clark. And that just goes to show that they don't pay attention. That just goes to show they haven't been watching the games. Because again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an Iowa expert, especially women's college basketball expert. But the games I saw Caitlin play, the games where she was going crazy, she was going nut. She was on her Harden. She was out here just getting shots up. Like, I've heard her being compared to Iverson. Like, that's closer to what she actually is than the traditional narratives that are reserved, whether you want to believe it's racist or not, whether you want to believe it's just people just being comfortable with tropes from yesteryear to now, whatever. That's another story for another stream. But the narratives that were being pushed upon her were more so the working class tropes. She was not viewed as a athletic freak. She was not viewed as someone that was a natural. She was viewed as someone that was a hard worker, had to get it out the mud and da-da-da. And while she may have had to do that, who said that Angel Reese hasn't do the same? And players like Angel Reese have had to do the same. There's been a lot of narratives, a lot of tropes, and that's what brings us to the next vid, which is Dawn Staley, who was out here talking her talk, and this is after a loss. Her team takes a loss, and I'll just let Dawn say it because she said it so poignantly and so matter-of-factly that there's no more reason for me to set it up. So here's Dawn Staley speaking about things. Now, she mentions media, but there's some backstory here of some actual coaches who also may have been who she's referencing in this clip.
And it hurts. Okay. And I do think that some of, I'm gonna say it because I said I was gonna say it, whether we lost or whether we won. Some of the people in the media, when you're gathering in public, you're saying things about our team and you're being heard and it's being brought back to me. Okay. And these are the people that write nationally for our sport. So you can not like our team. Okay, you can not like me. But when you say things that you probably should be saying in your home, on the phone, or texting out in public, and you're being heard, and you are a national writer for our sport, it just confirms what we already know. So watch what you say when you're in public and you're talking about my team in particular. Just watch what you say about our team, because it's wrong. You got young lives who are really, if you really knew them, like you really want to know other players that represent this game, you would think differently.
Okay, so that was Dawn Staley, again, after a loss. So, like she said, win or loss, she was going to get that off her chest. Shout out to North Philly, and that's North with an F, no TH. Dawn is about that action. If you're not hip, if you're unfamiliar, she is, without a doubt, about that action. So I'll come off the screen here. I know Angela's got some comments. Let's go ahead and get to that. Angel Reese didn't do much in this game, though, and her team was up by 20 when she came in the game. Caitlin did it first, but just because someone else does it doesn't mean we have to be tactless, too. Okay, first, I don't think it's tactless. I think when you play sports, I know myself, when I played, whether it was track, whether it was, basketball or football, even if it was like flag football, I was talking. So no matter what I was doing, I was talking. So I don't think it's tactless. The bottom line is you have a player in Caitlin Clark who was known to do that celebration, the Tony Yayo or John Cena, depending on which part of America you're from. And she got called out. When you take that L and you're known for doing a celebration, you're going to get hit with your own celebration. It happens in all sports. People will mock you. If you think you're him, or in this case, if you think you're her, and you're running around giving at the people, when they're beating you, when they're whooping up on your ass, guess what they're going to do to you? That's how that works. I don't think it's tactless. I think it's something where, if you're in the heat in the moment, you can either be two ways. You can be, the old school, act like you've been there before and all of that. And I'm not shading that. That's just not me. Even when I was playing softball, I was talking, I was taunting, I was doing all of that. So I'm just the type of person that, for me to have extra energy in the game, to have extra, stakes in the game, I talk. I mean, how y'all think I could be on these streams for 3 hours? I can talk. So when I'm playing these sports, when I play these games, I'm talking. But if you're not that type, like I had plenty of teammates that talking was not their thing. Talking was not their bag. But guess what? You get them pissed off. If they know you do something, they gonna mock what you do. I have a homie who was, he was our Derek Jeter on softball, and he was nice with it. He didn't talk that much. But if you said something about one of us, like his teammates, if you try to crack on one of us, when he goes up there and smacks a 3-run homer, oh, he's talking. And if you're known for doing something, he gonna mock that. And this is a dude who never talks. So, that's just the way it is. You get caught up in the adrenaline of the sport, the competition, the drive, all the stuff that's supposed to be good things. We want people who love the game, right? We want people who care, right? We want people who will live and die for this, right? But when it comes to a celebration, what, act like you've been there before? Why? I haven't been here before. I never won a championship. No, I have not been here before. I'm acting a fool. I am acting a fool. I have not been here before. I may have won chips in high school. That ain't this. I may have won chips, in AAU. That ain't this. I have not been there before. Therefore, I'm acting a fool. But that's just me. So, y'all have any thoughts on that? Let me know. I think Dawn, I love the fact that she spoke out. Again, I think the women's game, there's a lot of momentum around the women's game in general. They've had ratings that have been bigger than NBA regular season games. So, that's pinching numbers, right? Like, no one cares about an Orlando-Detroit game in the middle of, January, as opposed to, women's Final Four. Like but again, you use whatever numbers you got to do to make things look the way you want them to think, right? Alexander, I get that, especially as a lacrosse player. I guess it just we weren't allowed to do that. to other players because it was just how it was raised. Okay, well here's the thing with lacrosse, right? Lacrosse is a very athletic. You need a lot of agility, athleticism, hand-eye coordination, dexterity. Why wouldn't they allow y'all to celebrate that? Like, it's not easy to score a goal. It's not easy to be a defender in that sport. Why wouldn't they allow you to celebrate that? Like, that's kind of my thing when it comes to sports. And, in baseball, Brian McCann was one of those guys who didn't want people to bat flip. And he had the thing with Carlos Gomez and they would go back and forth at it. I don't understand why we get upset when players make this money because we say it's a child's game. You're getting paid all this money to play a child's game. But then when players want to celebrate like children, act like you've been there before. You're a grown person. I'm like, well, wait, hold up. Well, one end, it's a child's game. On the other end, act like you've been there before. If I'm a child, I've never been there before. That's even more of a reason. If I'm a child and I score a touchdown, I'm going crazy. If I'm lacrosse and I'm scoring goals left and right and I'm hot that day and they can't stop me, I'm going crazy. I don't understand why everyone wants people to be Barry Sanders. Remember, Barry Sanders just scored touchdowns. He would break entire defenses in half. He would crack a whole D-line twice. Run through tackles in your linebackers and then outrun your secondary for 80 yards and then just hand the ball to the referee. Oh, they couldn't get enough of that back in the day. Those types could not get enough of that back in the day. I always was a little pissed off. Like, you did all of that and you just go and hand the ball off. Like, if anyone had reason to do the Icky Shuffle, to do a moonwalk, to do anything of the like, it was Barry Sanders because of what he had to do to score. This isn't like you just getting a little cheap 1-yard touchdown. So it's like, all right, I ain't really do that much. Here, man, take the rock. I'm breaking whole defenses in half. 1 on 11 for 60 plus yards, 80 plus yards, 70 plus yards, breaking 6-7 tackles. And I just go hand or ball off to the ref and just slowly trudge back to the bench. Nah, man, that was one of the worst things. That's my only slight about the greatness of Barry Sanders is that the fact that I didn't need him to be out here doing the dance. He doesn't need to be AB. He doesn't need to do any of that stuff. I'm just saying I would have liked to see some sort of excitement. Like, was he so good that doing something like that was so second nature to him that it wasn't worth celebrating? It sounds like there was other stuff going on. And if you know Barry Sanders and the background there, the family stuff, no comment. I won't say more. But Google is your friend. There was a lot there with Barry and his family. But that's what I just wanted to touch on. I applaud Angel Reese. I applaud Dawn Staley. The women's game is taking off. If anyone wants to send me a WNBA hoodie, either the orange and white logo or the black with orange logo. I think the black and orange is that fire though. But either way, you will see me pulling up here with a WNBA hoodie. And I'm always a fan of basketball. At the women's game, I like watching women's college basketball more than men's college basketball. And I am not afraid to say that. And I don't need to justify that to anybody about that. But let's jump back into some NFL stuff, right? So we have report. Titans Raiders are looking to trade for the Cardinals' 3rd overall pick in the draft. And this is what we were talking about earlier in terms of the most important spot quite could be that 3rd position. Depending on what the Texans do, let's say they stand pat, or let's say no, let's have fun. Let's say they take Will Anderson. Now we know the Cardinals aren't doing a QB at 3, so now their pick is in play. Who jumps up to 3? And there's reports that the Titans and the Raiders could be some of those teams that are trying to get in the mix at 3. Now, what would the Titans be trying to look for at 3? Well, according to NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah, he said that the Texans are exploring a move up to 3 in the draft in their current 11 spot. You know, the two teams to keep an eye on with trade ups are the Raiders and the Titans. So that's what we had to report. You would think that the Titans would be looking for a QB because they have Malik Willis. They still have Ryan Tannehill. So obviously, if they're not a believer in Willis as a franchise QB, which after what you saw last year, why would you be? Why not trade up? And if, you know, Stroud is there, if you're that high on them, or maybe even Anthony Richardson, why not? Why not? So a lot there to make light of, but you know, Raiders also looking to move up. That's interesting to me. The Raiders moving up. I think Richardson would be great with the Raiders. I think he would actually. I would like his landing in Vegas than Indianapolis, and not just for off the field reasons, like for on field reasons. I think the combination of Josh Jacobs, even though he's on the tag, Josh Jacobs and Devonta Adams, give me that over Jonathan Taylor and Pittman. I mean, the draft low-key should be abolished anyway, but that's if y'all want to hear my thoughts on why I think the draft should be abolished and why it should be true free agency, just let me know in the comments. I might do a standalone video on that alone, because I've had that thought for years. I've never liked the concept of a draft because we've seen too many times players being drafted by the wrong team for the wrong system, and then players become bust, but the teams just, you know, get to just keep drafting badly away. They just keep on drafting bad picks and they never get held accountable, but the players are just, you know, categorized with bust for the rest of their lives. Okay, what else we got? Raiders will host. Okay, we just talked about Anthony Richardson and Raiders. Raiders will host Anthony Richardson for a pre-draft visit. Per Jeremy Fowler of the Four Letter Network, Richardson will visit 5 other teams, including the Panthers. Raiders are reportedly looking to trade up for the 3rd overall pick and previously attempted to trade up to 1st overall when the Bears held it. Yes, that is true. They did try to talk to the Bears, but they did not have enough of what the Bears wanted in terms of draft capital, so the deal went nowhere fast. Okay. Alexandra, Malik Willis equals bust. Yeah. I agree. I don't know. See, here's where I have my problem with the draft, right? I think Willis is a bust for what the Titans are asking of him. I don't know if Willis is actually a bust, because a bust means this person cannot play at this level. I don't know if I know that categorically right now that Malik Willis is not an NFL quarterback. I didn't say he's an NFL starting quarterback. I didn't say he's an NFL star quarterback. I don't know if Malik Willis is a bust just because the Titans, who have no talent around him outside of Derrick Henry, I don't know if that means he's a bust. He's in a really bad situation. Why they traded A.J. Brown, I'm glad that GM should have been fired the second he sent that trade through to gift wrap A.J. Brown to the Eagles. Alexander, yes, tell me why the draft should be abolished. Okay, so, all right, I'll give you the quickie version. Pause. And by the way, you didn't answer my question about lacrosse. How come y'all weren't allowed to celebrate in lacrosse? Like, why wouldn't you want to celebrate in lacrosse? But anyway, if you have time, I would love that answer. Why the draft should be abolished? It's simple to me. These are jobs. These players are coming out of college and they've been preparing for a job. No matter what we think of it, whether we think of it as a game, whether we think of it as one of the most lucrative careers you could ever have, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it is a job. How would you feel after you went to college and got your degree in whatever it is, you could not apply for a job, you were just picked up by whatever company decided you fit their skill set? Because take Malik Willis. If there was free agency, true free agency, if we treated this like a job where players can choose where they go, interview the teams instead of vice versa, it could be 50-50. Teams can interview players and players should be able to interview teams. How do I fit here? What's my role going to be? What system are y'all running? That type of stuff. Instead of just take this Wonderlic, come here to the combine and run and jump for me in your underwear, do all this stuff for us, and all right, maybe we'll take you, maybe we won't. That to me doesn't sound like a fair and just workplace. A draft is something where players don't have a choice. And as you've probably been seeing over these streams, Alexandra, I'm more pro player than pro management. And that's because of my life in healthcare as a delegate, as a union delegate. So I have a lot of feelings about labor management, the relationship between the workforce and the employer, so on and so forth. And to me, the draft just seems like something that just is incomprehensible if you believe in a fair and balanced workplace. These are jobs. You can get hired, you can get fired. If I have the skill set needed to go get a job, I apply to jobs that I want. If there's a match, they interview me. They ask me questions. I ask them questions. They can then offer me the job. And then ultimately, it's on me whether I accept the job. In sports, it is not like that. You put yourself out there to all the teams in your industry. So let's say you put all you put all your skill sets available. Your resume goes to all the teams, right? Your resume goes to all the teams. They look over your resume. Some people rank you in terms of finalist, but it's a very one-sided relationship. You do not have the say, unless you're Eli Manning and those like that, John Elway back in the day, unless you're a real elite immortal and you have the leverage to do so, you don't have the wherewithal. It's like take Randy Moss. Randy Moss's resume was elite coming out of Marshall. Yes, you can nitpick some troubles he had at, Notre Dame and whatever, Florida State and whatever before that. But in essence, he was a can't miss. The Cowboys wanted him, but were scared to do it. He fell all the way to the Vikings, and that shifted the trajectory of the league. If you go back and do that draft, he's a top 5 pick, if not the number 1 overall pick. If he was able to interview teams instead of the other way around and negotiate a deal, he might have went to a team that was a better fit. Now, the Vikings worked out, right? But that's not always the case. If we take Malik Willis probably never wanted to go to the Titans. Why would he want to go to the Titans? It's a bad fit. The Titans think they could do something with it. What wherewithal do we have of that? They have Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. What about that system screams, you know what we need here? A Malik Willis. If you ask Malik Willis, he probably wishes he was drafted by another team. That is a better fit, that might give him a better opportunity to actually play and start. Instead, he has to sit behind one of the most average QBs in the history of the NFL in Ryan Tannehill. So, to me, I think the draft should just be abolished because it is 2023. We should not be picking players like this. It's getting closer to it once we see what it is with NIL and things of that nature. But I think once we flush all this stuff out and it's a free and open marketplace for players, men and women, so this isn't just biased towards NFL or NBA, whatever, no players should be drafted. This isn't the military. And even we still don't even do that now. There's certain parameters that have to happen when a draft is put in place, right? Certain things have to happen in this country for a draft to take place. I don't know. It's just my thoughts. I'll flush it out more succinctly and better on a standalone video, but that's just off the top of my head. Those are the arguments I have against having a draft. Okay, what else we have? Pat McAfee show. In Rappaport says, I know the Ravens still want to get a deal done with Lamar Jackson, and I think he still ends up back in Baltimore. So he went on McAfee, and he had a whole bunch of words to say, but this was the money quote out of all of that, is that I know the Ravens still want to get a deal done with Lamar Jackson, and I still think he ends up in Baltimore. So there you go with that. Will that really be a thing? Like I said, there's nothing really new on that, but I just wanted to give y'all that little nugget of tea because that's something that did happen. The Patriots. Patriots would only acquire DeAndre Hopkins under one circumstance. And that one circumstance is they don't want to give up no draft picks. I think for a team like the Patriots, it would either be a no draft pick compensation or way, way, way down from Arizona's initial ask and an adjustment to the contract. That's courtesy of Albert Breer, who went on a podcast. I'm assuming it was a Patriots podcast. A Greg Bedard podcast. Okay. So that's more of a national NFL podcast. So, yeah, it would take either a no draft pick compensation or way, way, way down from Arizona's initial ask and an adjustment to the contract. So basically, just give DeAndre Hopkins away. That's the only way the Patriots would be in on it. Just give DeAndre Hopkins away. Baltimore, there's still a chance. Go get Lamar in the fold. And if Arizona's giving away DeAndre Hopkins, go ahead and get on up in there. Don't worry about the draft. Just go on up in there and go get Nook and watch Nook and Lamar cook. Okay. So here's was a interesting thing with Peter King, who we talked about earlier, who had the information on Houston potentially not taking a quarterback at 2. He also was clapping back at people on the Elon app because he had a quote on Carson Wentz. Let me make sure I can see that. Yep. I'd argue that no player in NFL history has cost so much and delivered so little. Now, this was early last month. Yeah, about almost a month to the day. I'd argue that no player in NFL history has cost so much and delivered so little. Now, here's a person trying to clap back. I can think of a fuck ton of players that did far less and cost twice as much. LOL. Peter King is such a unserious dipshit, right? Oh, but Peter King had time today. Peter King had time. Name one that cost $127 million, was on the street at 30, meaning no team, never won a playoff game, and had 3 teams trade 3 first-round picks plus 6 more picks in the top 100 of drafts to get him. So now when we talk about bust, why aren't we talking about Carson Wentz? Now he's a rich bust, but still a bust. Be clear. Because I've never considered all of this. This is a pretty concise way to just sum up Carson Wentz's career. And again, what were people buying into that they kept putting their necks on the line for Carson Wentz? That 1.5 a year when they said he was the MVP? But the fact that he cost $127 million, was out with no team by the age of 30, never won a playoff game, and had 3 teams trade 3 first-round picks plus 6 more picks in the top 100 of drafts to get him. That is an elite clapback, and that is information I had not put together. I did not follow all of that to track all of that, and I didn't realize that it was 9 picks. $127 million in 9 picks, and you didn't even get 1 playoff win from him. And he was done by the age of 30. Great work if you could get it. I tell you that. So we were talking about the Bears and the Panthers earlier. The Bears initially wanted the Panthers to trade them defensive end Brian Burns, defensive tackle Derek Brown, or DJ Moore as part of the package for the number 1 overall selection. And, they ended up making the deal for DJ Brown and not Brown or Brian Burns. Agreed. Carson Wentz, Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, all modern day bust. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty solid list. I would put Sam Darnold on that. I don't think Sam Darnold's any good. I think we could go ahead and put Zach Wilson on that. I don't think he's any good. Like there's a few guys we could just start going ahead and adding to that list. But again, are they bust because they weren't NFL starting quarterbacks, or did they just go to the wrong team? Like Carson Wentz, I mean, based off that Peter King ether, that to me is a killer breakdown. So I'll put him in the bust category, right? But Josh Rosen, he literally just got the 1 year in Arizona. I mean, was he that bad that 1 year? He certainly wasn't great, but was he that bad that 1 year that the Cardinals were justified? Now, mainly they did it because they wanted to get Kyler Murray and they were bringing in Kingsbury. But was he that bad that it warranted his career essentially being done after 1 year? I don't know. If he was a free agent instead of being drafted, would he have even chosen the Cardinals? Would he have agreed to a deal with the Cardinals if it were left up to him? Who knows? And that's why I think the draft is a problem and should be abolished. All right, let's see. Come off the screen for a sec here. Thanks for those who are here. Appreciate you. We're kind of moving around a bit today. But I do want to get to this story here because this is a story that was being talked about a lot. Andrew Wiggins. Wentz and Bradford went to multiple teams. They're bust. Yeah, no, I'm here for that. Trust me. Wentz, you ain't getting none out of that. You ain't getting no defense from me. Sam Bradford, I was never that big on. You know, I know he went to OU and all that, but I was never that big on anyway. But yeah, no, there's plenty of guys who I think have shown us that they were bust. My question is, some of these players that got very limited opportunities, are they really bust? Ryan Leaf lasted long enough that he showed us he was a bust, like certain players. Jamarcus Russell, he showed us enough that he was a bust, right? Josh Rosen, I just don't know if we even got a chance to even really see if he was a bust. I think he was just on the wrong team at the wrong time. He had a lame duck coach, a front office that, was covering up a lot of stuff that later came out this year specifically in terms of how they really give it up. And yeah, he was just he was collateral damage. They wanted Kingsbury and they wanted Kyler Murray. So anyone who was not those two at those two positions, you had to go. But anyway, Shams Charania. Golden State's Andrew Wiggins plans to attend Warriors Thunder on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. The reason for Wiggins' leave of absence is mid-February is that his father, Mitchell Wiggins, has been dealing with a serious medical situation, sources close to the situation say. Now, here's why this is news. If you haven't been hip, there was a really nasty, treacherous, salacious rumor going around about A. Wiggins, and I'm not sure if it's his wife or girlfriend, the mother of his children at the minimum. I won't repeat what that rumor is or was. I don't think it to be true, especially with this reporting today coming out. But that was the talk around All-Star Weekend. I'm in a few group chats where some of this stuff was thrown around and no one could confirm it, but that was just the tea that was going around during NBA All-Star, which is the rumor of Andrew Wiggins and the wife of his children. And it kind of coincided with the absence. And if you believed in conspiracy stuff, it would make sense. But now we're getting actual reporting from Shams, who is very much tapped into players, agents, and managers. Shams, that's his lane, while Woj is more front office executives, trainers, people that work for the team, front office execs. Yeah, that's who Woj rocks with. Shams is more players, player managers, entourages and things like that. So good to see that it was this thing and not what was being rumored about, because what was rumored about was really nasty. Really, really nasty. So sometimes you hear things. Sometimes when you work in this industry, you hear things, and I'm always hesitant because I like to, I'm building a platform for myself and for my brand. I didn't want to be the guy to jump out there just for easy clicks, just to say the thing. about Andrew Wiggins and what the rumor was online. That's just not my style. If it was founded to be true and it was real reporting behind it, then I have no problem talking about it because the work, the journalism has been done, and I still respect that craft. But the hearsay, wasn't really here for it. You know, I had some text chains about it with other people, but I would never go on a public platform and jump out the window with no real evidence of it. So I'm glad that that's not the case, and if we can move on, and hopefully Andrew Wiggins is in better spirits. Alexander, yeah, I think you are right as far as the draft. Yeah, I really think it's just being a worker, we have so few rights. And obviously that's by design. But in regards to sports, it's still a job. You're still applying yourself to work somewhere. You're still trying to put your best foot forward to work somewhere. And you know, I just don't think the draft in 2023 should still be a thing. It seems like an outdated metric and archaic system that should be abolished to me. And Alexander, I'm definitely going to do a video, a standalone video on that, because I've been, you know, on my podcast, the CMD podcast, you can find a link to that in the description. I've been talking about that for literally years, and I just really haven't done a YouTube video, like straight, concise, with data, information, all that type of stuff. I haven't done that yet, so that's something I'm going to add. I got a big whiteboard I write topics on. I'm going to add that to the whiteboard today. That's definitely something I'm going to talk about. Alexander, thank you for staying here, Alexander. I appreciate you always being here and pulling up and contributing. How long until Ja Morant's in trouble again? Well, if you're in Memphis, you're hoping never worry. But I think for right now, and I did a video and I talked about how I thought the NBA and, you know, and Ja Morant are using mental health as a shield to explain away all the nonsense that he got himself into. And I think it's really problematic that a league that tries to be front facing, that has had players like DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love come out and be proponents of the NBA, you know, listening more to players, having team psychologists, you know, setting up mental health days and mental health awareness for players and coaches. Like, it's very hypocritical to see them use this mental health angle of stress and anxiety as the reason why he's flashing a gun in a strip club. Like, the other stories where he's running down on finish line employees and mall security guards, where him and 9 people are showing up at high school games because someone called his sister a bitch, allegedly. The story about, you know, him allegedly laying hands on a 17-year-old kid who was playing basketball in his own backyard. I mean, none of those things the league suspended him for. The only thing that the league was concerned about was him waving the gun on IG. That to me is extremely problematic, and to just poo-poo that one incident with a suspension that wasn't really a suspension because he went to some sort of rehab facility for a week and a half and is magically cured of, you know, his stress and anxiety because he learned some breathing exercises. I think it's hella problematic. I think the league should really be held to task that they're exploiting mental health. You know, DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love didn't have to come out and be proponents for mental health. They didn't have to come out and talk about their struggles with depression. They put themselves on the line. In this day and age, it's still a stigma, especially for young people, especially for young athletes, especially for people who you perceive to be happy because they have financial prosperity. I think it's a real bad job by the league to allow this issue that has finally been taken seriously over the last handful of years to just poo-poo away Ja Morant consistently riding through Memphis, allegedly with 9 people pressing people. And then the one thing that makes all the headlines is him just going to a strip club and waving a gun on Instagram when he's allegedly putting the beats to a 17-year-old in his own backyard. with former NBA player Mike Miller right there. And then running to the mall after his mom's places a call, and he shows up 9 deep at a mall and presses the mall security. Paul Blart, you're pressing Paul Blart and you're Ja Morant. You're 200 million up. And you're pressing Paul Blart. I don't get it. I don't get it. He went to training, and yeah, I see you, Corey. Yeah. His job was fixed in 3 days. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's I'll be upfront. I love the NBA. I love how the league endears itself to the players. It's very anti the NFL in that way. And that's why for me, I'm always pushing the NBA, because as someone who is pro-labor, they at least acknowledge that their players matter to the bottom line, while the NFL, they only value quarterbacks, unless you're Lamar. But this right here, heading into 2023 and now being in 2023, because these things happened last year. All these incidents before the strip club thing all happened last year. So we're heading into 2023 where we're now allegedly supposed to be so more well versed in handling matters of mental health, all types of disorders. People aren't afraid to say they're in therapy anymore. People aren't afraid to go get help, to go to rehab, so on and so forth. It's not as bad as back in the day when you had to suffer in silence. But now, they're now using that to cloak Ja running around in Memphis thinking he Pac. That's all they did. They're using mental health to cloak the fact that Ja Morant is running around Memphis thinking he's Tupac. So, Alexandra, to answer your question, how long until Ja Morant is in trouble again? I don't know. I hope for his sake he doesn't get in trouble. But, this league needs Ja Morant, apparently. This league needs Ja Morant so bad that they really, literally gave him a slap on the wrist. Slap on the wrist. They had the Barbara Walters type sit down with him and Jalen. Jalen's running around saying, I did a good job of that interview, when the only real question he asked was whose gun was it, and he had no follow-up to the bullshit answer, the word salad answer that he got from Ja. But so salute to Jalen. I at least like that someone who looks like him got that position to have that interview with him. But as far as the execution of the interview, I mean, mid. But yeah, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And here's where it gets real fun. Let's see. Let's just pull up my favorite site, Basketball Reference, and see where our friends, the Grizzlies, are at right now, because they've been hot, actually. Even when Ja was away, they got hot. Let's see. Yeah, they are a 2 seed. Let me blow this up. We should be good there. We're good there. Yeah, y'all can see that, right? Nope, not that. We'll go back. Yeah, y'all can see that. So yeah, they are the 2 seed, right? 49-22. And, you see the Lakers here at 7 in the play-in. There's a really good chance that the Lake Show moves up to about 5. I still think that they're susceptible to get beat. If Golden State falls to 7, no one wants to be 7, because 7 means you're in the play-in, right? So what is it? 7-11 is the play-in. So no one wants to be 7. So, the Lakers are going to fight like hell. Bron is not healthy, but he's going to fight like hell because he don't want to be part of this play-in. But Memphis, out of these teams right here, the Pels, the T-Wolves, the Thunder, and the Mavericks, they should be able to get that dub in the first round. That means you're going to get second round Ja Morant. That means potential road games in Denver, which is where all this went down. Well, no, that would be conference finals. But potentially, if they get to the conference finals, then it could be Denver. Sacramento, which is, a quick PJ flight to LA away. Phoenix, which if you know Scottsdale, Arizona, you know, it can get lit. LA, San Francisco. I mean, there's New Orleans, like there's places where if Ja, they're gonna have to keep Ja under lock and key. I mean, he already said that, you know, on road games, they're getting right out of certain cities, and one of those certain cities for sure was Miami. But how do you do the playoffs where there's multiple days off in between games sometimes? That little cute stuff works. Like, let's take a look at their last little stretch here of the season. Let's get to the schedule. No, I do not want to become a member of StatHead. So, thankfully, they only have a couple. Okay, so here's perfect, right? New Orleans, they got a day off, and then they're in Milwaukee. By all intents and purposes, they're hopping on the jet right after this game against the Pelicans, and they're heading straight to Milwaukee. So by Thursday morning, they're in Milwaukee. If we let this Ja thing figure itself out, if they're still on this type of time. Like when they first talked about him coming back, they mentioned Miami. They had played Miami before that even was a thing, before this thing was even implemented. So the only day you could look at is the Hawk game here. They had a home game Friday night against the Rockets. Then they had to go to Atlanta. So after this game Sunday night in Atlanta, no Magic City, no King of Diamonds, none of that. Because even from Atlanta, you can make that quick trip down to South Beach. You get to PJ and be there in about an hour or so. So yeah, none of that. Hopping right back on the bird, go back to Memphis because you got to play Orlando. So even yesterday against the Bulls, they're in Chicago for the Bulls. You can get around and move around pretty nice if you want to find those types of things in Chicago. But right back on that bird because we got to get to Memphis, back to Memphis because we got to play Portland on Tuesday. And that was an afternoon game with the Bulls. They could have really got into some action last night in Chicago if they wanted to and still come back first thing this morning. But if, you know, the Grizzlies are living by their word, they got the hell up out of Chicago Sunday night because of Ja. But what happens with this NOLA game? What happens with this NOLA game? Wednesday night, they're in New Orleans. Are they getting the hell up out of New Orleans Wednesday night? When they can have a day off in New Orleans and then go to Milwaukee for Friday? We need to keep an eye on that. So let's keep an eye on that. I will make a note. I'll write this down because I want to make sure. I want reporting on if Memphis indeed does leave New Orleans after this game Wednesday. Y'all keep me honest. If I forget to bring this up on Thursday's stream, y'all hit these comments and let me know. I won't add it to the whiteboard, but I'm gonna write a note here. Got my Sharpie. I'm gonna write a note here. Wednesday night, Grizz in New Orleans. Okay. All right. Okay. We are going to keep an eye on that because I want to know if they're really going to keep up with that. Milwaukee and OKC, you don't got to worry about that. But this game in New Orleans, are they not going to be on the French Quarter? No Bourbon Street? Y'all saw Your Honor. Y'all know how they give it up. If you watch Your Honor, you know how they give it up in New Orleans. Back to the comments. Alexandra, you know, if Jordan or Pippen did that, they would have been suspended. Well, I mean, didn't allegedly. Okay. How do you want to play this, Alexandra? Are we going to ignore? Are you a believer in conspiracy theories? Because we know the one with Jordan, and allegedly the real reason why Michael Jordan went to go play baseball is because of his gambling debts. And he had run up so many gambling debts and that he owed money to the mob that, you know, it got to David Stern, and David Stern told him to go sit down for a year and a half because you got in too deep with your gambling debts to the wrong people. Allegedly. Conspiracy, urban legends, so on and so forth. I tend to believe the actual narrative of they murdered that man's father and he didn't know how to handle it. So he needed to go sit down and go play baseball to grieve. But, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, maybe Jordan did get suspended for something allegedly way worse than waving a little pistol in a strip club. Alexander, I'm definitely a conspiracy theory person. Well, then Jordan got suspended then. If you're a conspiracy person, Jordan got suspended. So, you know, the late, not great David Stern allegedly suspended Michael Jordan for his gambling debts to some people that were allegedly connected to the mob. If you believe that, then, you know, Jordan did something that was perceived as worse. That's why, you know, the first thing I said when this whole Ja thing went down, especially on Instagram, I said, oh, David Stern would have had that boy in his office the crack of dawn that next morning. After the IG thing, he would have been summoned to the Manhattan offices, and David Stern would have been waiting for him. He did not play that. I have a lot of critiques of David Stern. I'm not a fan of David Stern in his tenure. I think the dress code was hella problematic. I think it was a lot of things in his tenure that were, in hindsight, really not that great. He was just the right dude he was at the right place at the right time and got a whole ass legacy because of it. But if he would have still been around, you know, and Adam Silver is definitely way too player lenient. Way too player lenient. And, you know, he just wants to make sure that just don't do anything to mess the money up. And that's why the IG clip was the one that sent them over the edge, because all the other stuff you can explain away and just you could settle lawsuits out of court and all that type of stuff. But waving a gun in a strip club on Instagram, you can't excuse that. You can't blame that. The only thing you can do is what they did and use mental health to, you know, cloak the fact that he went around thinking he Pac. Alexander also didn't have the Instagram in all his social media pages. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Jordan would even have been on Instagram. I can't see Jordan on Instagram, even if they would have had it, because he didn't like the fact that we had cameras in his face. So if he didn't like the fact that we had cameras in his face everywhere he went, how do you think he would have reacted with camera phones? Like, imagine Jordan running around, you know, sitting in a Ferrari, listening to Kenny Lattimore, and someone's pulling up beside him with an iPhone, zooming in on him driving around with a cigar in one hand and Lord knows what in the passenger seat. Certainly not Juanita Jordan. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Jordan would have been on social media. So yeah, that was that story. And here's the last story I'll touch on. And I appreciate y'all for pulling up. People have been pulling up, dropping a like. And no matter how long you stay, always appreciative of the likes, because that helps spread this to more people who may pull up. The Mavericks. Are the Mavericks crashing and burning before our very eyes? And according to Shams Charania, the Mavericks are seriously considering shutting down Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to push for a top 10 pick. That's bad news. That is bad news if I have to give you analysis, right? Like, if I have to give you real analysis, that is bad news for a team. And this is a team that's still technically in the play-in at 11. I mean, technically, they're still there. But, yeah, like, what? Man, this team is just... I will say this, right? I didn't understand the trade when they made it. I understood their reasoning for it. I didn't understand it from a basketball sense. And, I don't know if Corey's still here, but I haven't checked Luka's usage rate. But let's go ahead and do that real quick. I have a game where Luka was trending towards a historic usage rate that only James Harden and Russell Westbrook was able to beat. And he was at 38, close to 39. We were close to rounding up. He was on the verge of hitting 39 on his usage rate. And the highest usage rate was Russell Westbrook with a 42, I believe, either 41 or 42. James Harden was second with 40 usage rate. And usage rate is, for those who don't know, just how much you demand the ball, how much the ball is in your hands, pause. So you're a very ball-dominant player. Even though you can pass the ball to get assists and all that stuff, you have to initiate everything. The ball has to go through your hands on every possession, right? So that's something that tracks that. Oh, 37.8. 37.8 usage rate. It hasn't dropped that much. I am impressed, Luka. The fact that you can have Kyrie Irving on that team who loves the ball like nobody else, except you apparently, he has kept that usage rate extremely high. It's still higher than last year, and he led the league in usage rate the last 2 years. And even with Kyrie Irving playing, his usage rate is still way up there. Better than last year, which led the league. I'm impressed. Alexandra, I hate it, but Ja might mess around and get himself killed waving a gun. Well, I don't think he'll be waving any more guns. I think the IG thing was an isolated thing. I think the real problem is that his family is using him as the enforcer, allegedly. All the incidents prior to the gun waving thing were someone's in trouble, call Ja, and then Ja shows up with 9 dudes. That to me is more of a problem than here's a early 20s-year-old millionaire, and let's see if, he likes strip clubs and spending money in strip clubs. I think the answer will probably more times than not always be yes, right? Like, that's what's always going to happen. So we have here in Ja where I don't put the strip club thing up there versus the other alleged incidents. All right, Corey's still here. So yeah, Corey, remember we were tracking the usage rate of Luka. He was getting close to 39. So he was like 38 point something. He's only 37.8. So he has maintained his high ass usage rate even with Kyrie there. That's elite level stuff. But to Alexandria's point about Ja getting himself killed waving a gun, I don't think it's going to get to that point. At least I certainly hope not. But I think what this one thing has made him do is to realize he needs a fall guy. Because when Jalen Rose asked him that question of, well, whose gun is it? He gave us a lot of word salad, but in essence, he told us he found a fall guy. So someone in that crew of 9 took the fall for having that gun. And I think going forward, when someone in the family is in a jam and they need 9 dudes to show up, I think those 9 dudes are going to show up without Ja Morant having to be there. Because whenever that happens and Ja Morant is there, people don't remember the 9 dudes. They just remember Ja Morant. So to insulate himself, I think he's going to remove himself from those types of situations, or at least I hope so. Alexander, true falling in the trap of young, dumb, and a lot of money. Yeah, sure. It happens. It happens to the best of us. You don't even have to have a lot of money. I was young, dumb, and broke and did stuff that I'm like, oof, I shouldn't have did that. So, sure. But yeah, if you would have gave me $200 million, I don't know how many more mistakes I would have made, but you could be young, smart, and broke like I was and still make dumb mistakes. So, it is what it is. And Alexandra, for everyone who's been pulling up, she's running from that lacrosse question. I want to know why they didn't allow them to celebrate in lacrosse. I really think that's hella problematic because lacrosse is not an easy sport. You should be allowed to celebrate. So I think what we have here with Dallas is, yes, I was getting into the Dallas breakdown because I think heads are going to roll here. Heads are going to roll because the Kyrie thing hasn't worked, but the problem is they're kind of stuck with having to re-sign Kyrie, right? And you see what's left. If they're in the play-in, oh, you said you answered? I didn't see the answer. Let me go back. I want to make sure if I missed it, my apologies. I don't remember seeing it. Oh, okay. Now I see it. My bad. I missed that. I think I went right to your Malik Willis comment instead of the lacrosse. All right. So I apologize. I walk it back on Alexander. She did give us her reasonings for lacrosse. I get that, especially as a lacrosse player. I guess it was just we weren't allowed to do that to other players because it was just as No, I read that one. I just don't know why they won't, with how hard that sport is, they wouldn't let y'all celebrate. But okay. All right. I don't like that as a person that plays sports still to this day. I just don't like that. But all right. I think if you were to get out there and go back to playing lacrosse, I would hope you would be more celebratory in that. But back to the Mavericks here. 3 games, and this Kings game, that's probably a loss. Even though the Kings have clinched it, I don't think they can do any maneuvering, right? There's no seeding. They can't get number 1. Do they need to hold off anybody at 3? Let's see. There's a sliver of a hope for them to slide to 2, although it's highly unlikely. So there's nothing really in this game for the Kings except for spoiling the Mavs and putting them in position to where they might miss the play-in. So do you do that? And then the Bulls and the Spurs. The reason why this is really bad is because you're still going to be forced to re-sign Kyrie Irving if he takes the money. If he takes the money. There's been no proof that this has worked. There's been absolutely positively no proof that this has worked. So if you're the Mavericks, you're going to be in a position where not only did we give up a pick and some pieces that are beneficial for the Nets in Dinwiddie and Finney-Smith, now we're stuck with having to use up our salary cap on Kyrie just to justify the trade. It would be smart of them to not sign that, to not offer a contract to Kyrie Irving. It would be smart of them to do that. But there's going to be pressure from Luka. Luka has allegedly applying real pressure to this Mad front office. How that works, I don't know. I would not bring back Kyrie if I was the Mavericks. It wasn't going to work. It was very sexy in terms of names and like highlights, but it's just not going to work. Even if they have a whole training camp next year and Jason Kidd can spend the whole summer trying to figure out a way to incorporate the 2 of their strengths, which are strangely enough very similar, I don't think it's going to work even then. They couldn't find a role for Christian Wood. So I don't think they're going to find a way to make Kyrie Irving work there. So I wouldn't do it. But because of all that they gave up for Kyrie, they may be forced to do it. But the Western Conference standings is still extremely close. When you look at the loss column, where, let's go ahead to Lakers. I'll finish up the stream talking about the Lakers. Let's get down to the Lakers, right? So they're in the 7th seed. They need to get out that 7th seed because they need to get out the play-in. Whatever days off you can give LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you need to make that priority 1. So they have a game tomorrow night against Utah. AD's got to play that. LeBron's got to play that. You would think Utah would be tanking that game, but you never know. Then you have the Clippers. This is now a huge game. This is a huge game now. This game matters. And I believe the Clippers owned them this year, except for that one game when it was, did they play them? Yeah, they played them a few weeks ago, right? They played the Clippers. Where is it? Didn't they play the Clippers? Am I bugging? I thought they played the Clippers a few weeks ago. Okay, I'm bugging. That's really strange. I could have swore I saw, well, they played the Clippers in January. Damn, okay. All right, I'm officially bugging. Okay, so the Clippers game is big. Phoenix, I don't know if this game will mean anything for Phoenix in terms of seeding. So they may be sitting people. But these 2 games against the Jazz, those are must wins. And then you would think that they can take care of business against the Clippers once. And then if you need to throw away that Phoenix game, then you can do that. But if Phoenix is laying down because they're good with seeding, they could run these 4 games. If they run those 4 games and finish with 44 wins, that could, in theory, get them to about 5. If they could run the table. Utah is still in play-in contention, so that game will matter something to them. But you take care of business. You got 2 Utah games, put them out the pasture. You have the game against Phoenix with the gap here where they're 4 games in the loss column behind the Kings and 3 games in the loss column above the Clippers. That game might not mean anything for Phoenix, so they may lay down there. If they do lay down and the Lakers could run off 4 straight, they're definitely not going to be in the play-in, and they could be as high as 5 and then play Phoenix in round 1. And out of all these 4 teams, that's the one team I don't think the Lakers want to see. I don't think they would be scared. Clearly, you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You're not scared of Phoenix. But out of these 4 teams, the top 4 in the West, if I'm the Lakers, that's the one team I don't want to face in the first round. That's the one team I don't want to face. Give me Sacramento, light the beam, like sit here at 6. I think the Warriors are in the best spot. Face the Kings. Now, the Kings could score now. The Kings could score. They can't play no defense, but the Kings could score. They're going to be something to watch in the playoffs. They're going to be dropping. I don't give a lot of betting advice. I'll tell y'all this. Take the overs for whatever Sacramento games. Take the over. Because they score and they don't stop people. So those lines, those totals can't be high enough to me. I'm not sitting here acting like I'm an expert, but some of y'all know how I hit these bets. But I would take a lot of overs in Sacramento games. Anywho, let's see. I'll go for a couple more minutes. Let me just double check these streams. Okay, stream is still good. Okay, let me double check the tweets, see if there's anything that's popped off while we're here on the stream. Broncos cornerback Faion Hicks, a 2022 draft pick, was arrested in Florida for 3 charges, including third-degree felony charge for carrying a concealed firearm. I'm good on that. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. The Ravens have offered Odell Beckham a contract via the bluest of all blue check boys, Adam Schefter. It seems that the Jets and Ravens are the 2 teams in the mix for Odell, with the Rams also possibly in the mix. Now, the Ravens signed Odell. What are they telling Odell about Lamar? And has Odell reached out to Lamar? And what do you think those conversations are looking like? If they have offered Odell Beckham a contract, they must have had negotiations to let him know that the Lamar thing is going to work out. Because there's no way that Odell Beckham would even consider this contract if the potential quarterback is more than likely going to be Huntley. There's no way. That's interesting. Odell to the Ravens, maybe. Looking like the Jets and the Ravens in the mix, and the Rams out on the outside looking in, but also potentially in the mix. Let's see, anything else? Oh yeah, let me check for my boy. Appreciate y'all here on the stream today. It was a busy day today. I'm glad I was able to get home in time to set everything up for the stream. Got started a little bit late today, but was still able to pull up the information to give y'all, I think a good stream. Okay, so here's some information. Let's go here. The NFL needed 2 more votes for Thursday Night Football to have flex scheduling. Among the teams to vote no to Thursday Night Football flex scheduling were Giants, Jets, Bears, Packers, Saints, and Steelers. The Broncos and Panthers abstained, which means they were neutral. They're Switzerland. They chose to not vote. The NFL plans on revisiting the topic in May. Interesting. Former Ravens OC Greg Roman plans to take the 2023 NFL season off. All right, don't need to worry about that. We won't worry about that. No copyright. Yeah, it's pretty much dried up here in these streets. So I will take that as my sign to pull off and bid y'all adieu. We'll be back at it tomorrow on the stream at 4 o'clock. For Timeline T, thank you for all those who pulled up in the comments. If you have not subscribed to the channel, you like this content, hit that subscribe button. I will be always in the chat, pulling out comments up and going back and forth. And you can always catch the replay on the live tab of this channel. Do not look for it in the video section. The video section is more for clips of the live stream and standalone videos, whereas we catch a replay of this live that is held on the live tab of the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is growing. I'm very appreciative for y'all to help this stream grow and build, and the channel is growing along with it. So I thank y'all so much for being here and being active. And I will see y'all tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of Timeline T with me, your host, Sam Duzume Jr., aka DCMD. Peace.